Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Adult Faves for Winter and Beyond. I'm Susan Maguire, Senior Editor, Collection Management and Library Outreach at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download them by typing the URLs on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select Show or Hide Subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the caption at any time by selecting Caption Settings. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Lainey Mays, Library Marketing Associate at HarperCollins Publishers, Golda Rademacher, Library Sales and Marketing Director at W.W. Norton Company, and MC Smitherman, Marketing Assistant at CamCat Books. First, we'll hear from Lainey Mays. Lainey is the Marketing Associate of the Library Marketing Team at HarperCollins. She loves to bring librarians and great books together, whether that be through the Library Love Fest podcast or her new book recommendation site, Bookmarked by Lainey. Check out both of these wonderful offerings at librarylovefest.com. Thanks for being here, Lainey.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. I hope if everyone like me is freezing where I am in New York, everyone is staying warm and hope everyone's having a good day. So we're going to get started and tell you about some really great reads coming up. And next slide, we're just going to have a lovely view of this new website that was just mentioned, Bookmarked by Lainey. It's a staff recommendation shelf, but right for librarians to see online. So I update it and we're having some fun with it. You might hear about a few titles that were included today. And next, all of that is at librarylovefest.com. So if you want our socials, if you want anything, go there, click the little tiles that coordinate with whatever I'm talking about today. And there's an advice catalog, but you'll get the list with the slides. Next, we're going to get started. Okay, The Great Divide by Christina Henriquez. So this is Christina's the author of the Book of Unknown Americans, and we're excited to work with her for this next book. It's a big major historical fiction that won't leave you after you've read it. We've got a great Star Publishers Weekly review that said it's a pitch perfect novel that has the feel of a classic. So it's going to be a big one. You're going to hear about it. So this story tells the sides of the story that have never been told about the construction of the Panama Canal. And we're taught in history about how the United States came down to Panama in the 1900s and the early 1900s to attempt to make this big engineering feat that they thought was impossible. And it was going to be this big triumph, but unsurprisingly, that's all told through the white Americans' point of view. Christina grew up going to visit family in Panama, and for 15 years she wanted to write about it, but she found little from the Panamanians, I think is how you say it, perspective through a ton, and then a ton from the Americans. And she wanted to tell the people who were actually there doing the work. And she takes us there in this really big novel of hers. This is about Francisco, who is a local fisherman who resents the foreign powers clamoring for the slice of his country, and he sends his son Omar to work as a digger in the excavation zone. But for Omar, his upbringing was quiet and lonely. This job offers a really big change and to find connection. And then we have Ada, who's 16 years old and comes over from Barbados with a lot of West Indian seeking work. And then there's John Oswald, who has decided life will be a scientific research life and journey to Panama for eliminating malaria, and then his wife falls ill, and all of their stories converge into a sweeping tale of ambition, loyalty, and sacrifice. And I mean, that cover is so beautiful. There's a lot of reverence to this culture and a lot of really interesting things you'll learn along the way as well in this work of fiction. Next is The Silver Bone. So this is a special one. It's the first in the series. It's poised to be a really big breakout from the Ukrainian Stieg Larsson. He is really outspoken and for the causes over there, and he's just a big literary force. And this is a really interesting one because it's historical fiction, but it kind of goes along a lot with what we're seeing today. So it's the end of World War I in Kyiv in 1919, and six factions vie for control of Ukraine. And we have electrical engineer Samson Koletko, sorry. He's orphaned. He and his father are walking somewhere, and Cossacks come and kill his father. And the attack also leaves Samson without his right ear, and which is interesting because he learns later that this severed ear that he keeps as a memento actually can eavesdrop from other rooms. It's going to help him a lot. So there's a little bit of magical realism. And he goes to report some Red Army soldiers who come to live in his home and take it over, but instead he is unwittingly recruited to help as an investigator for the city's police force. There's a lot of Ukrainian history that's echoed today, and I think that's really interesting about this book, but also it's got this, wonderful magical realism with a really thrilling, fun mystery story. And it's only the first installment, so look out for more from this quirky detective fiction with a twist. And Frank Tallis said relocates the historical crime novel somewhere between Kafka and the Twilight Zone, which I love. And he was actually on a Writers to Watch author program last month, so you can go watch the replay. It's really, really wonderful. Next is The Lost Book of Bon by Brianna Labuskes. We're big Brianna Labuskes fans here, and we always love a historical story. You learn something about the past, you have strong female perspectives, and there's always a librarian, so I don't really know what else you could ask for. And in this story, we go to Germany in 1946. Emmy is a librarian, but not a soldier, but that doesn't stop the Library of Congress from sending her overseas to Germany. She's going to help the monuments men retrieve and catalog precious literature that has been plundered by Nazis. And this is kind of a lesser known thing than returning the art, but she feels like it's just important. She finds a poetry collection by Rainier Maria Rilke. And this is on the title page, there's an inscription, and she sends her on a big journey. She looks for the rightful owner, and it leads to two sisters, a horrific betrayal, and an extraordinary protest against the Nazis that was held in Berlin almost a decade earlier. And as she looks for those people and grapples with her own ghost, she begins to wonder if she's chasing two more. There's a lot of courage, and it's a really powerful story. And Brianna highlights, there's also a queer love story in there as well. And Brianna highlights the power of books during wartime, something that we all know what happens and how powerful they are in times of darkness. Next is The Stone Home by Crystal Hannah Kim. So if you read If You Leave Me, you know how beautiful and lyrical her prose is. And we're very excited that she's returning for a new story, a new poetic family drama. So it starts in 2011. Unju Oh opens the door to greet a stranger, and this is a young Korean American woman holding a familiar looking knife, a knife that Unju hasn't seen more than 30 years and doesn't really think she'd ever would. And it takes us back to South Korea in the 80s. The young Unju and her mother are homeless on the street. They're sent to live within the walls of a state-sanctioned prison, and it's a reformatory center that claims to rehabilitate the nation's citizens. But they form a tight-knit community with other women in the kitchen. There's also two teenage brothers who have to labor in the workshops. And it just comes out this really beautiful story going back and forth in time. And it's inspired by real events told through intimate perspectives. It's deeply affecting. And of course, there's the mother-daughter story that's really special too. Crystal Hannah Kim weaves a lyrical exploration of the legacy of violence and the complicated psychology of power. And we have a lot of love coming in. Jessamine Chan, Minjin Lee. It's really going to be a lovely a lovely read with a lot of love coming in. Yeah. Magical Girl Retires is next by Park So-yoon. This is a really special one. The author has won multiple awards. It's been bought by a Korean production company to make it a TV series. There's a sequel coming. And with the rise of K-pop and K-dramas, it will be a big hit. There's a new twist on this magical girl story for a millennial and Gen Z crowd. Our main character is 29, depressed, drowning in credit card debt after losing her job, and she's gonna jump off Seoul's Mapo Bridge. Her suicide attempt is interrupted by a girl dressed in all white, her guardian angel, on a mission to find the greatest magical girl of all time. And our protagonist just might be that someone. But it's not all fun and games. It seems like this is more work than she wants to do. And despite being magical, she still battles with low self-esteem. Her magic wand is a credit card, if only, which she must use to defeat the terrifying threat that isn't a monster or an intergalactic war, it's climate change. Park So-yeon reimagines classical fantasy tropes and reminds us there's magical girls in all of us, and that fighting evil by moonlight, winning love by daylight can be anyone's game. There are illustrations you can see on Edelweiss, some examples, and it's only 144 pages, so it's really quick, adventurous read. Next is You Should Be So Lucky by Cat Sebastian. We're stoked to have Cat Sebastian's second novel for in the world we started in the previous book before this, We Could Be So Good. Cat is the romance author bringing us historical queer love stories. And We Could Be So Good was a mid-century romance, and we have another one here with cameos from our favorite characters from that. It can be a standalone. We have Opposites Attract, Grumpy Sunshine, Forced Proximity. I mean, all of these words sound like I'm saying the right things, right? Set in the 1960s. And it's between a baseball player who's not doing so well in baseball, who's matched up with a really reluctant newspaper arts writer who is brought in to help with a stunt to get the struggling paper more readers, and the lonely souls gravitate towards each other. Next is Ella by Diane Richards. So Diane Richards is the executive director of the Harlem Writers Guild and a writer, playwright, and music producer. She gives us this novel reimagining the triumphant and turbulent life of Ella Fitzgerald, arguably the greatest singer of the 20th century. Few people outside of jazz aficionados really know her real life story. She didn't really give a lot of interviews or speak about her life, but filling in gaps and oversights in the handful of biographies, this novel focuses on the power of the young singer's formative years. Her mother died at the height of depression in 1932. The teenager goes off to work for the mob. She ends up being sent to a New York training school for girls to be reformed, and then she escapes to Harlem, enters a contest, and sings Judy. And 4 years later, at barely 21, she's become the best-selling female vocalist in America. This is really going to show how wonderful her life is and how rich it was. But also a flawed mother and wife who struggles with these emotional scars. It's great for fans of historical fiction, Melanie Benjamin or Marie Benedict. This is going to be the read for you. And we're also going to have this author on Writer's Watch, so please join us. Next is The Light Eaters, another author who will be on our Writer's Watch, so please join us. You can sign up on librarylovefest.com. Just click the Writer's Watch event link. And then so this is a really great narrative nonfiction. I'm super excited about this one. It has taken all of my time. After I put it down, all I could think about is plants. So Zoe Schlinger is currently a staff reporter at The Atlantic. She covers climate change, but she kind of needed to change herself. She wanted this negative view to kind of go to something more restorative. And so she looked to plants. And plants are really resilient and kind of overlooked for their complexity and resourcefulness. And in recent years, scientists have learned about their ability to communicate and recognize their kin, or trick animals into behaving for their benefit. I mean, just to name a few. And The Light Eaters is a deep immersion into these developments. So it's something that's, like I said, taken over my days. You won't look at your plants the same again. You look at them differently. Like, is the smell of cut grass a way for other grass to know there's danger? Or can a plant see insects coming? It's really fascinating. And what's even more exciting is we can look to the things these plants do for a more restorative earth, how we can save our earth and help us secure the earth's longevity. The scientists leap off the page. I never knew so much about plant politics, but Zoe goes in with a curious mind, and she came into the office. She just answered all the plant questions, and we can't wait to have her on our event. So please join and listen. Next is Amphibious Soul by Craig Foster. So yeah, this book could be huge. It's really set up to be an instant classic. It's a passionate love story about nature that inspires readers to reclaim their inner wildness, and a debut nonfiction from the naturalist, filmmaker, and creator, star of the Oscar-winning documentary, My Octopus Teacher. Um, so it's kind of part travelogue, part naturalist memoir and spiritual guide. There's a lot about the deep connection our animal selves can reinvigorate, or how that can reinvigorate our lives. And it's told through Craig's really warm and passionate voice. A decade ago, he was living in a city and feeling exhausted, so he went back to his birthplace, the Cape of Good Hope, and took a dive into this African sea forest each day. And he really came to see his own amphibious soul as a powerful metaphor for the human condition. It's filled with a lot of descriptions and how we can live close to nature in an urban jungle even, or how to nurture our individual wildness. There are a lot of wonderful photos, and it's going to have QR codes throughout for videos and of everything. And, H is for hawk, braiding sweetgrass, like perfect reader for this. It's got a really great audio experience too. He'll narrate it. And I don't even have time to tell you about all the crazy great reviews, like from James Goodall to James Cameron to Yo-Yo Ma. Like, it keeps going. So I hope you check it out. Next is Grown Women by Sarah Johnson. So this is a stunning debut novel. 4 generations of complex Black women contend with motherhood and daughterhood, generational trauma that divides them as they redefine happiness and healing for themselves. We have 3 generations of women. They all love each other, but they definitely have personalities that clash. And they're all gonna, when the third one, the youngest one, is gonna have a daughter, they all come together to raise this daughter together and give hope and joy. But despite their best intentions, they cannot agree on what that means. And when she leaves for another cosmopolitan life, with her great grandmother, it's clear that maybe the complex and self-contained girl will thrive or be overwhelmed with the fears and dreams of the 3 generations she carries. It's really smart, evocative, and nuanced, and it's loosely based on mother-daughter relationships in Sarah's life, but perfect for fans of Jacqueline Woodson or Britt Bennett or Morgan Jerkins. Next is I Hope This Finds You Well. We have a really heartfelt debut. It's our lead read, which is something the sales team all gets behind and votes for. And this, we have Jolene, who goes to her unfulfilling office job and talks to the least amount of people she can, and then leaves, doing her best to avoid her incompetent coworkers. And, kind of gets away with writing little notes and making them white text so no one sees them. Unfortunately, someone does. She gets in trouble. Someone has to monitor her computer, but that backfires. And now she is she can monitor everyone else's emails and chats. She finds out that she might lose her job, and is gonna use that to her advantage. It's super fun and a lot of humor, and like a millennial audience. I thought of Misdemeanor by Eleanor Lipman. There's a lot of love coming in. It's a 2-book deal. We acquired books from Natalie Sue for another book, so it's really exciting. All right, last, and then I'll be done, is the winner, Teddy Wayne. This is a Whiting Award winner, Teddy Wayne. It's a really propulsive literary thriller about a young law student. He goes to teach tennis in a posh gated community near Cape Cod. He gets away from his mom, his diabetic mother, and they share an apartment in Yonkers, and he thinks it's great, but not many people are signing up. So he's like, I got to make money. And then a divorcee appears on the court, offering twice the amount of his usual hourly rate, but maybe for a little bit extra. And so this turns into a really secret, sexy affair. And despite his flings with this woman twice his age, he finds himself falling for a quirky, outspoken girl he met on the beach. And now he's in deep and tries to see both women until he makes a mistake. The darkly comedic thriller it brilliantly skewers the elite, and a big novel for Teddy's beloved in the literary community. And Liz Moore, who wrote Long Bright River, said Teddy Wayne has written a timely topical novel that will still somehow feel like a classic. And that is all for me. Thank you. Those are a few if I had more time, but you can look at them later.
Thank you so much, Lainey. Our next presenter will be Golda Rademacher. Golda started as a sales assistant at Norton 23 years ago. She is now the library sales and marketing director, which seems appropriate since both of her parents were librarians. You can find her on Twitter and Instagram at WW Norton Library. Take it away, Golda.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Susan, and thank you all of the Booklist team. And thank you to all of our listeners for joining us today. I have a bunch of books coming out next year to tell you about, and I tried to pick titles that you haven't heard about yet in previous webinars, but there are always even more titles that I don't have time to talk about, so I hope you'll check out our full catalog on Edelweiss. Wake Up America comes out in February. This is a collection edited by Keisha Blaine, who co-edited 400 Souls with Ibram X. Kendi. Blaine brings together the voices of major progressive Black women politicians, grassroots activists, and intellectuals to offer critical insights on how we can create a more equitable political future. The book includes incisive essays by former Senator Nina Turner on economic justice, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee on reparations, Black Lives Matter co-founder Alicia Garza on political power, current California Senator LaFonza Butler, and abolitionist Mariam Kaba on freedom from policing, and a lot more. The Trump Indictments collects the 4 unprecedented indictments against Donald Trump. This essential volume features extensive commentary by NYU law professors and MSNBC contributors Melissa Murray and Andrew Weissman. Ghost Dogs is the first nonfiction book by Andre Dubus III since his memoir Townie was released. Dubus returns to the personal with essays that talk about the contradictions that have colored his life and career. Grounded in Massachusetts and then expanding into muggy childhood summers with extended family in Louisiana, a perilous trip to Mexico as a bounty hunter, and a doomed relationship with a privileged girl in New York City, Dubus's essays focus in on the fears and joys of adolescence, of swaggering youth, of physicality and violence, and of settled domesticity and fatherhood. Some Strange Music Draws Me In is a vivid, intense coming-of-age novel set in a small town in Massachusetts. It's the summer of 1984 in Swaffham when Mel, short for Melanie, meets Sylvia, a tough-as-nails trans woman whose confident swagger inspires Mel's dawning self-awareness. But Sylvia's presence sparks fury among her neighbors and throws Mel into conflict with her mother and best friend. Decades later, in 2019, Max, formerly Mel, is on probation from his teaching job. Back in Swaffham, he must navigate life as part of a fractured family and face his own role in the disasters of the past. This book is very loosely inspired by Hansberry's teenage years and his own experiences as a transgender person. With We Loved It All, Lydia Millett, who is best known for her fiction writing, branches out into nonfiction essays full of wisdom and heart. Drawing in part on nearly 3 decades advocating for endangered species at the Center for Biological Diversity, Millett summons her distinctive voice, rich with insight, intellect, and humor, to capture the complex tapestry that each of us weaves with the world. She combines personal stories with the issues of our time, and you can give this to any of your fans of Annie Dillard, Robert McFarlane, Barry Lopez, Terry Tempest Williams, and other writers who weave the natural world into their work. Choice is the new novel by Neil Mukherjee. His previous books have been shortlisted for the Booker Prize, New York Times Notable Books, and all received a lot of praise. Choice is told in 3 connective narratives, one written by another character in the novel, using its structure to examine urgent contemporary themes. Together, these connective narratives raise the question, how free are we really to make our own choices? In a scathing but compassionate novel, Mukherjee confronts our fundamental assumptions about economics, race, appropriation, and the tangled ethics of contemporary life. So we're always happy for a new book by Ann Hood. The Stolen Child comes out in May. Haunted by the unknown outcome of a wartime decision decades earlier, a dying man hires an adventurous young woman to help him unravel a mystery in this moving novel of secrets, forgiveness, and love. Ann Hood captures a world of possibility and romance through the eyes of a young woman learning to claim her place in it. Give this to your fans of Ann Napolitano, Jess Walters, and of course, fans of Anne Hood. I'm also excited about a new novel from Claire Massoud. She is the best-selling author of The Emperor's Children and The Burning Girl, among others. A fun fact about this strange, eventful history is that she was inspired by her own family history, and that photo on the cover is actually her father. This is a historical novel that spans 7 decades, 5 different perspectives, and travels to many countries. She pulls you into the lives of the characters while also connecting one family to larger 20th century movements, including feminism and post-colonial nationhood, and showing how people, then as now, made flawed decisions in the context of their historical moment. Coming from Live Right, Benjamin Park's American Zion is a history of Mormonism that demonstrates that Mormonism was central to the development of American views of religious liberty and minority rights, and that Mormonism has been characterized by profound internal divisions from the very start over women's rights, race, and more. Park brings those stories to the fore and shows how racial and sexual minorities have fought for acceptance and to change the faith itself. Forgottenness won the BBC Ukrainian Book of the Year award in 2016 and is finally being published in English. The book explores themes of erasure and independence, and you learn about the Ukraine from the story of an anxious contemporary narrator who is researching a famous historical figure. The narrator mines her country's history in pursuit of a better grasp over her own. This is good for any fans of international fiction that is steeped in history. The new book from Patty Davis, Dear Mom and Dad, is her most autobiographical work since The Long Goodbye. Davis casts an empathetic yet honest eye on her parents. Her account of her father's Alzheimer's and her mother's end-of-life struggles becomes an account of forgiveness, reaching levels of redemption rarely found in contemporary memoirs. When Tracy King's father was killed by teenagers on the streets of their public housing project, her family developed a deep and dysfunctional reliance on the born-again Christian church to which they belonged, and Tracy was pulled from school. In the memoir, Learning to Think, she tells the story of how she discovered an old copy of Carl Sagan's The Demon-Haunted World in a used bookshop, and finally learned to think for herself. She depicts her family with love and nuance, but she does advocate for imaginative freedom and taking charge of your own education. King examines various trends and belief systems and why they particularly appeal to the disenfranchised, and she concludes with a toolkit for assessing claims and critical thinking. Village Weavers is the second book by Miriam Chansey to be published by Tin House. This is a story of friendship across decades and continents through personal success and failures. The story starts in Haiti in the 1940s and expands to Paris, the Dominican Republic, and the United States. Unlikely best friends Gertie and Cece are separated, but eventually come back together after decades to try to break inherited cycles of mistrust and find a way back into each other's hearts. And also coming from Tin House, we have the debut novel by Morgan Talty. His collections of stories, Night of the Living Rez, came out last year to much acclaim and has been a bestseller for Tin House. The new novel, Fire Exit, is a masterful and unforgettable story of family, legacy, bloodlines, culture, and inheritance. Who belongs where? Is it always necessary to reveal secrets? Tommy Orange says, this book is filled with humor and humanity's strange wonder at its own desperation and depravity, as only Talty can do, with his subtle charm and crystalline prose, his sober reckoning with what love can and cannot do, what healing is and is not possible in our families. The novel absolutely smolders. And then on a different note, we have So You Want to Run a Country by Kevin Holohan being published by Akashic. This is a satirical cyberpunk romp pitting fascist feudalism against rampant reality television corruption with the future of humanity at stake. I Disappeared Them is also coming from Akashic. This is a dark thriller that has one of those serial killer characters who thinks he's killing people for the right reasons. This is a good pick for your fans of the TV series Dexter. In her new book, Indivisible, Denise Hamilton helps readers unpack their preconceived notions and reimagine a world that's better than just inclusive. She is a nationally recognized workplace culture and DEI expert and has worked with hundreds of companies to improve their team building with practical advice. This book is an indispensable guide for human resources professionals and anyone interested in diversity and inclusion initiatives. And then back to serial killers. I should have thought about this organization more before I made the slideshow. So Pensler Publishers is starting a true crime imprint, and The Serial Killer's Apprentice will be their first book in the Crime Inc. line. Catherine Ramsland is a well-respected expert in criminal psychology and has written many true crime books. She has the cooperation of Elmer Wayne Hensley, who has told her how he got pulled into the web of serial killer Dean Corll. The book tells the story of Corll and his accomplices in its fullest form to date. It also explores the predator's instinct for exploitable kids, current neuroscience about adolescent brain vulnerabilities, the role of compartmentalization, the dynamic of a murder apprenticeship, and how tales like Henley's can aid with early intervention. Abbeville Press is coming out with a 4th edition of The New Father, the best-selling parenting book that has now been revised with updated information and resources for the first year of fatherhood. And then from The Experiment, we have a graphic memoir, Polar Vortex by Denise Dorrance, which is a moving account of her relationship with her mother and perfectly captures the grief, nostalgia, and chaos of traveling home to care for an elderly parent in crisis. And I saved my biggest graphic novel news for last. Fantagraphics is publishing My Favorite Thing is Monsters Book 2, the long-awaited sequel by Emil Ferris, in April. The first book left a lot of open questions, and we've had so many emails over the years from people looking for Book 2, so I think you'll have a lot of demand for this. We just released our Summer 2024 catalog a couple weeks ago, which has even more great books coming out next year. So I hope you'll take a look at the catalog on Edelweiss and keep tuning into future webinars where I will start to talk about the books coming out next summer. And here are the links to our recent catalogs and a link to our contact page where you can sign up for the Norton Library newsletter and access digital ARCs. I do all of my print ARC giveaways in the newsletter, so I encourage you to sign up for the newsletter if you would like to request print ARCs. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of the week.
Thank you so much, Golda. Our final panelist will be MC Smitherman. MC is the marketing assistant at CamCat Books after spending several months as a marketing intern. He recently graduated from Cal Arts with a BFA in theater and has been telling stories for as long as he can remember. However, his memory does cut off sharply at 4 years old when he front flipped into a coffee table and lost his sense of smell, so maybe even longer. In his free time, when he's not playing tabletop and video games, reading, writing, and listening to podcasts, he's probably asleep because that's mostly everything he does. Thanks for being here, MC. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hi there, everyone. I'm MC Smitherman, as I was just introduced, and I'm here to talk about some of CamCat's adult favorite sci-fi, fantasy, and horror books for your consideration. We can head up to the first slide. So first up, we have They Split the Party by Elijah Menchaca, the sequel to They Met in a Tavern, making it the second book in the Glint Chasers series, which came out in June. This time around, in this fantasy world heavily inspired by the themes and rules of Dungeons and Dragons, we follow the recently reunited adventuring party, the Starbreakers, on their most recent adventure, recapturing all the villains they put into prison years ago who just broke out of the unbreakoutable prison, Oblivion. As the Starbreakers scatter to face friends and foes of the past, it's a fight for peace in the kingdom they call home, and a fight to protect the legacy they left behind. It's also exactly the opportunity their enemies have been waiting for. This exciting and often quite humorous sequel is an excellent follow-up and raises the stakes for the Glint Chasers series. This unique look at heroes gives us an excellent one last job style of story that might not in fact be their final adventure together. We can move on to the next slide. Here we have Ghost Tamer by Meredith R. Lyons, which came out just 2 months ago, almost to the day. In this paranormal ghost story, we follow Rayleigh, who survives a train wreck that kills her best friend and awakens an ability to see ghosts, including one who has watched over her all her life and another who is hell-bent on destroying her. As powerful and dramatic as it is hilarious and original, Ghost Tamer already has loads of rave reviews and is a riveting adventure that no one should miss. It's perfect for those who love ghostly adventures and readers of Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo and Ghost Eaters by Clay McLeod Chapman. We can move on to the next slide. Now moving on to upcoming releases. We've got The Oxygen Farmer by Colin Holmes, which comes out on December 5th. This twisting sci-fi tale is filled with sabotage, murder, and cover-ups, making it just another day on the moon. All the way out on the moon, the cranky old oxygen farmer, Millennium Harrison, stumbles onto a century-old secret that threatens to derail the first mission to Mars, possibly destroy the Luna colony, and maybe even end all life on Earth. While The Oxygen Farmer isn't Colin Holmes's first book, that being the highly praised Thunder Road, it is his first foray into the sci-fi genre, and it's already racking up some great reviews. This pick is great for those who love classic sci-fi, mysteries, and anything involving Harrison Ford. And we can move to the next slide. Now we've got some upcoming paperback selections that are going to be coming out soon. Now they are already available in hardcover and large print, but the paperback editions are coming out this spring. So for the fans of sci-fi, we've got 3 fresh releases. Those who love supervillains and genetically engineered dinosaurs and sibling rivalries, we have The Meister of Decimon City by Brenna Rainey. In this sci-fi romp, we follow Rex, a super genius scientist extraordinaire, as she lands in hot water with the government thanks to her dinosaurs rampaging across her city. But at least nobody knows about her supervillain twin brother, who's trying to use her to take over the world. The Meister of Decimon City has 3-star reviews already, and the paperback is coming out on March 5th. Now, if your sci-fi inclinations are more on the post-apocalyptic and philosophical side of things, as opposed to the sort of comedic, big, bombastic romps, then the thoughtful Karma of the Sun by Brandon Ying Kit Bowie, which already has a glowing review from the Wall Street Journal and a Booklist starred review, that might just be the book for you. In an imagined future of Earth's last days, a young Tibetan Sherpa hunts for his missing father in the ruined nuclear winterland of the Himalayas. And we follow along as they race against a final calamity that threatens to destroy all of humanity. And this beautiful and moving tale returns to shelves in paperback on January 16th. And for those who love satire, oddball humor, and scary sci-fi beasties, we have Intergalactic Exterminators, Inc. by Ash Bishop, which is, in my opinion, best enjoyed through audiobook, as it sports the title of an Audie Award winner, and it's also an American Fiction Awards winner. In Bishop's feel-good sci-fi debut, we follow the unassuming Russ as he stumbles across a mysterious artifact that attracts an alien predator and encounters intergalactic exterminators who insist he join their team or else. And though it is an Audie Award winner, it is coming to paperback, and actually not even coming, it is already here. The paperback has released in September. We can move to the next slide. We also have some new paperbacks for those who are fans of fantasy and paranormal genres, including Son of the Salt Chaser by A.S. Thornton. This Ippy Award winner is the sequel to Daughter of the Salt King, which is a Forward Indies Award winner, a Benjamin Franklin Award runner-up, and received a Forward Starred review. Now, the King Selim, or the now King Selim, pursues revenge against the invaders who murdered his family in this epic. Meanwhile, the forgotten Emel, her beloved's memory of her stolen by her own desert-transforming wish, travels to his kingdom by the sea to reclaim what was lost. Those who love the sort of romantasy mashup genre will love the Salt Chaser series. There's also The Beached Ones by Colleen M. Story, which is a suspenseful ghost story oozing with cathartic grief that blurs the lines between fantasy and reality, and has already received quite a number of glowing reviews. After a stunt jump gone horribly wrong, our protagonist, Daniel, finds himself lost far away from home without knowledge of the accident. He's haunted by disjointed memories with only one clear thought in his mind. He must get to his younger brother before time runs out. And finally, rounding out our fantasy and paranormal selection of fresh paperbacks is The Immortal Detective by D.B. Woodling, the first in a series of vampiric mysteries with top-notch world building, and it does have a prequel YA entry, The Immortal Twin. The Immortal Detective has received quite a number of positive reviews as it offers a thrilling fantasy mystery with some fascinating vampiric drama. We can move on to the last slide. In our last slide of the day, we are featuring our upcoming paperback releases in the horror genre. First up, we have Clawheart Mountain by David Oppegard. That is perfect for slasher movie lovers as it delivers a terrifying tale of monsters and moral ambiguity at this breakneck pace as we follow a group of college friends who stumble upon $15 million in an abandoned armored van way up in the mountains. But as they take the cash, they're unaware that a killer is after the loot as well, and a legendary creature haunts the mountain. And then finally, we have When the Night Bells Ring by Joe Kaplan, another Ippy Award winner on our list that follows a pair of climate refugees as they descend into the cool darkness of a haunted old mine, only to find that while they escaped the sun-scorched and sand-blasted disaster of a world outside, they may have stumbled into something even worse. With a Booklist starred review under its belt, When the Night Bells Ring is an excellent pick for the horror lover in your life. And I believe we have one more slide. Yeah. That's going to be it for us here at CamCat. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me at maxwell@camcatpublishing.com. Our books are distributed by IPG, but you can still get them from your favorite wholesaler. And to hear more from us, you can sign up for our newsletter and find us on Edelweiss. Thank you so much for your time, and happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate it.
Thanks so much, MC, and a big thank you to all of today's panelists. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's video recording, title list, PowerPoint slides, and a certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Between January 1st and August 31st, 2023, ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom, OIF, documented challenges to 1,915 unique titles, an increase of 20% from the same reporting period in 2022. Join the fight to help protect the freedom to read by supporting the Unite Against Book Bans campaign and visit their website, uniteagainstbookbans.org, for resources, toolkits, merchandise, to donate, and more. And remember that you can utilize Booklist to support your library's collection development choices with reviews backed by the ALA. We have a special webinar subscription offer, and don't forget that your subscription dollars help ALA advocate on behalf of libraries, assisting those facing an unprecedented number of book challenges. Email us at info@booklistonline.com for more information. We have a special announcement. Introducing Booklist's Book Club, a year-long partnership with your favorite publishers. Each month, Booklist will showcase book club picks and supporting materials from a different publisher, offering a wide range of genres and age groups to fit the needs of any book discussion group. This month's sponsor, Macmillan Library, has tons of resources for your book groups. To find out more information, scan the QR code on this slide or visit our website. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, and one final thank you to our sponsors, HarperCollins Publishers, W.W. Norton Company, and CamCat Books. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.